Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. I really ought to take some time to explore Giant Ghost City a bit too. Now that he had a prison guard's command medallion, leaving Devil Penitentiary was easy. He emerged from the stone turtle's left eye, whereupon the medallion shone with a soft light that protected him from the black waters of the moat. Before long he was out of the moat, and basking in the afternoon sunlight. Giant Ghost City was bustling like usual, with a good number of people about even on the streets near the moat. The splash of the water as he emerged attracted the attention of quite a few nearby soul cultivators, and as soon as they laid eyes on him, they realized where he must have just come from. He's from Devil Penitentiary. Devil Penitentiary. Virtually all soul cultivators in Giant Ghost City were terrified of Devil Penitentiary, so as soon as they saw Bai Xiaochun, they lowered their voices and averted their gazes. There even happened to be some city guards on patrol nearby, and as soon as they saw him and realized who he was, they simply pretended to have not noticed him, and hurried away. Wow, I never realized people from Devil Penitentiary have such a high standing. Although he had heard some rumors before about how people viewed Devil Penitentiary, to experience it firsthand as a prison guard was very different. I guess becoming a guard really was a good thing. Clearing his throat, he began to make his way down the street, simultaneously sending a message to Zhou Yixing to come meet up. Then he began to look around for somewhere to buy vengeful souls. Zhou Yixing actually wasn't very far away, but since flight was prohibited within the city limits, he was forced to hurry along on foot toward Bai Xiaochun. As Bai Xiaochun waited for Zhou Yixing to find him, he walked along and took note of several shops that sold vengeful souls. Some were large and luxurious, while others were smaller and more specialized. However, after asking around a bit, he was saddened to find that all of the shops were running very low on supply. In fact, none of them were actually selling vengeful souls, only buying them. After checking 7 or 8 shops and finding that it was the same with all of them, Bai Xiaochun started to get nervous. After all, he had come out with the specific purpose of buying some souls. What's going on? Why do all the shops that specialize in selling vengeful souls not even have any souls to sell? With that, he headed to another street, where he checked in with another 7 or 8 shops. To his shock, he found that it was the same with all of them. Finally, in one of the larger shops, he grabbed a salesperson by the arm and asked, "How come none of you have any souls for sale?" "What's the deal? How should I know?" The salesman replied with a glare. "We're out of stock. What are you grabbing me for? What, are you gonna try to take my soul or something?" This salesman had worked in Giant Ghost City for many years, and had come to have quite an eye for customers. He could tell by looking at Bai Xiaochun, and also from the way he asked his question, that he was a new arrival. Completely uninterested in dealing with a newcomer, the salesman gave him another glare and then prepared to rebuke him a bit more. Irritated by the man's attitude, Bai Xiaochun thought about how the city guards had reacted upon seeing him fly out of the moat earlier, and quickly pulled out his Devil Penitentiary prison guard's command medallion. "Do you have the guts to say that again?" he asked angrily, holding the medallion right in front of the man's face. At first, the salesperson seemed irritated, but when he realized that a Devil Penitentiary command medallion was being flashed in his face, he gasped. Scalp tingling madly, he shivered, and then plastered a huge smile onto his face. Considering that he had been in Giant Ghost City for many years, he obviously knew that people from Devil Penitentiary were among those who should never be offended. Devil Penitentiary was a place that even ghosts and gods were afraid of. The guards there were known to be vicious fiends, not to mention the inquisitors, who were brutal and cruel to the extreme. "Please forgive me, Exalted One. The truth is that none of the shops in Giant Ghost City have souls right now. We're completely sold out." "Sold out?" Bai Xiaochun said with a frown, his anger beginning to fade. "Yes, that's right. The 3 great clans have been hoarding souls recently, presumably because of the matter of the Hell Emperor's successor. If you have an urgent need, Exalted One, we do have a few random souls here at the shop, just not very many." Clasping hands nervously, the salesman hurried behind the counter and into the back of the shop to gather a few of the random souls that were available. Clearly, he didn't want to offend this person from Devil Penitentiary, and just wanted him to be on his way as quickly as possible. How domineering, Bai Xiaochun thought. I can't believe they bought all the souls just because of some Hell Emperor successor thing. Never could he have imagined that the as yet distant matter of the Hell Emperor's successor would already start to negatively influence him. Considering that flame conjuring would require more and more souls, the fact that Giant Ghost City was almost completely sold out could make things very troublesome. What am I supposed to do now? The three great clans are way out of line here. I guess I should have cleaned out the Bai clan even more than I did. Sighing, he realized he had to rest all of his hopes on Zhou Yixing, and whatever vengeful souls he had managed to get his hands on with the information Bai Xiaochun had sent him from the interrogated prisoners. Even as Bai Xiaochun was pondering the situation, the salesman returned from the back of the shop with a soul-hoarding pagoda in hand. Bowing and scraping, he said, "Exalted One, here are about 100,000 souls. It's really everything we have left." Bai Xiaochun scanned the soul-hoarding pagoda, and confirmed that it contained far from the amount he was looking for. However, it was better than nothing. Nodding his head, he was just about to pay for the souls when a bored-sounding voice echoed out from the entrance of the shop. "I'll take those souls." Two young men strolled into the shop, dressed in expensive clothing that seemed to be woven from spirit silk. Their robes glittered like magical treasures, and if one looked closely enough, it would be possible to see designs on them indicating that they had received sevenfold spirit enhancements. In the wildlands, spirit enhancements were more common, but the success rates were the same as back in the lands of Heavenspan. The higher the level of the spirit enhancement, the more likely it was that it would fail. A failure would lead to the complete destruction of the item and the ingredients, and that meant that any item which had numerous spirit enhancements represented heaven-defying good luck. Both of the young men were in the great circle of Foundation establishment, and from their magical clothing, it was easy to tell that they were no ordinary cultivators. They were flanked by 8 middle-aged soul cultivators, most of whom were in Foundation establishment. However, 2 of them clearly had core formation cultivation bases. Considering that the entire group of 8 carried themselves like servants, it made the 2 young men stand out in even more grand fashion. Bai Xiaochun eyed the clothing on the 2 young men, and could hear the stifled gasps coming from the other people in the shop. A look appeared on the salesman's face that seemed even more polite than the look he had given Bai Xiaochun earlier. Rushing over, he said, "Well met, Prince Chen, Prince Kai." "Give me those souls," said one of the young men, the one whom the salesman had addressed as Prince Kai. Although the young man had spoken in a relatively calm voice, from the look in his eye, he clearly viewed himself to be vastly superior to Bai Xiaochun. One of his servants immediately stepped forward with a bag of holding to take the soul-hoarding pagoda. Of course, there was no way Bai Xiaochun would simply agree to that. "Slow down, there," he said angrily. "I'm buying those souls." The 2 young men looked at him coldly, and could quickly see that he had a core formation cultivation base. However, they didn't seem to care about that, nor did they notice that he was Bai Hao from the Bai clan. "We'll pay double," Prince Kai said. With that, he and Prince Chen simply turned and walked out, clearly bored. Bai Xiaochun was already feeling quite humiliated, especially considering that the salesman had just glanced at him out of the corner of his eye, clearly delighted to be able to watch this scene play out. Anger rising, Bai Xiaochun took a step forward and loudly declared, "I'll pay triple." Outside, Prince Kai didn't even turn around before replying, "I'll pay 10 times the original price." These 2 young men were direct bloodline clan members of the Chen and Kai clan, and were responsible for coming to clear out the souls of the various shops in Giant Ghost City. Although 100,000 wasn't a very large number when it came to souls, their clan elders' instructions had been very clear. They had to get as many souls as possible. Bai Xiaochun was getting angrier. To him, it felt as if someone had slapped him across the face with a pile of money. Just when he was about to continue speaking, his transmission jade slip in his bag of holding began to vibrate. After scanning it with some divine sense, he heard an anxious message from Zhou Yixing. "Milord, I'm just east of the teleportation portal. Someone's trying to kill me and steal all the souls I got for you. Help." As soon as Bai Xiaochun heard the message, his eyes turned even more bloodshot than before. If Zhou Yixing had merely been involved in a deadly fight, it would have been more acceptable, but to hear that someone was trying to steal his souls was a different matter. Right now, Bai Xiaochun wanted souls more than just about everything else. And considering that none of the shops in the city had any souls to spare, Zhou Yixing was his last hope. "I only need to practice 5 more times and I'll be able to conjure 14-colored flame. As of this moment, anyone who tries to steal souls from me is my enemy." Enraged, and having no time to argue with the 2 crown princes, he rushed out and headed in the direction of the teleportation portal. As soon as he was out in the open, he flew up into the air and hung his Devil Penitentiary Command medallion around his neck. Although flying was prohibited in the city, when the patrolling city guards saw his medallion and realized who he was, they simply pretended not to notice him. He was already relatively close to the teleportation portal, so coupled with the fact that he was flying, it only took him a few breaths of time to reach his destination. As he rumbled through the air in a beam of light, he attracted quite a bit of attention. Even before he landed, he could see Zhou Yixing to the east of the teleportation portal, a look of desperation on his face as he struggled with a group of a dozen or so cultivators. One of the cultivators in that group was the very same chief of the Bai clan whom Bai Xiaochun had captured when fleeing the clan. Madame Kai was also there, accompanied by a contingent of followers, most of whom were members of the Bai clan. There were 2 other soul cultivators present who, based on their clothing, were obviously from 2 of the other great clans. As Bai Xiaochun closed in, the clan chief thrust his hand out, causing a black wind to swirl around Zhou Yixing, locking him in place and making it impossible for him to flee. Seeing Zhou Yixing in such danger, Bai Xiaochun roared, "How dare you, Bai clan lowlife!" As his voice echoed out like heavenly thunder, the group from the Bai clan turned to see who was approaching. When Madame Kai recognized who it was, she shrieked, "Bai Hao!" Bai Hao's father, the clan chief, looked up and began to tremble. As thoughts flashed through his mind regarding how he had been kidnapped, he gritted his teeth and growled, "Bai Hao!" The other members of the Bai clan were all shocked, and were immediately reminded of all the humiliation which had been heaped onto their heads because of Bai Hao. It's Bai Hao. The patriarch wasn't able to kill him back then, and he ended up getting taken away by the giant ghost king. Zhou Yixing was on the verge of tears, his heart gripped by a sensation of imminent crisis. "Help me, my lord." The clan chief's eyes burned with rage. A later investigation regarding the murder soul spikes had led him to Zhou Yixing, and he quickly realized that he was working with Bai Xiaochun. Therefore, after laying eyes on him during this visit to the city, he had immediately attempted to kidnap him. However, now that Bai Xiaochun had appeared, the clan chief changed his plan. Instead of trying to kidnap Zhou Yixing, he would try to kill him. Snorting coldly, he reached out and made a grasping motion in Zhou Yixing's direction, causing the black wind to transform into a windblade. "We might not be able to touch you because of your status in Giant Ghost City," he growled, "but that doesn't mean I can't kill your follower." Hope had just appeared in front of Zhou Yixing, only to be replaced by the black windblade, which now slashed down toward him, filling his heart with despair. Although all of these things take some time to describe, they happened in the time it takes a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. Seeing what was happening, Bai Xiaochun's eyes narrowed, and he burst forward with greater speed than ever. He wasn't using the mountain-shaking bash, he was using the undying hex. Anyone observing him would see him become a blur, while to him, his surroundings suddenly slowed down. Then he vanished. Meanwhile, the wind blade was slashing down toward Zhou Yixing, and he was wailing miserably. But then a screaming sound could be heard as Bai Xiaochun suddenly appeared right in front of Zhou Yixing. There, he reached out and smacked the wind blade. Boom! The wind blade shattered into countless pieces which spun out in all directions. At the same time, the Bai clan cultivators all stepped back. Pupils constricting, the clan chief took a step forward, performing an incantation gesture with his right hand as he said, feeling suicidal, "Bai Hao?" Instantly, the wails of ghosts and wolves could be heard as he used his distinctive Bai clan secret magic, causing his divine sense to transform into countless shadow ghosts that pounced toward Bai Xiaochun. "I beat you once before, are you really crazy enough to try again?" Bai Xiaochun shot backward, slamming into the shocked Zhou Yixing to send him tumbling away. Then, Bai Xiaochun glared at the clan chief as several afterimages appeared, which were none other than his 4 clones. Even as they appeared out in the open, they simultaneously unleashed a fist strike onto the clan chief. A huge boom rolled out to fill nearly half of Giant Ghost City. Instantly, numerous beams of light began to shoot in their direction. Magical combat is prohibited in Giant Ghost City. Stay your hands immediately. Stop right there. Voices rang out from the huge giant ghost statue in the middle of the city, as well as streams of shocking divine sense. Simultaneously, Bai Xiaochun and his clones slammed into the clan chief, after which all of them staggered backward. As for the clan chief, blood was oozing out of his mouth, and he was panting as he glared angrily at Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun was also backing up, but wasn't hurt. It was even as he pondered the advantages and disadvantages of fighting the Bai clan inside of Giant Ghost City that the voices and divine sense of the city guards appeared, much to his relief. Without any hesitation, Bai Xiaochun shouted, "How dare you ambush someone from Devil Penitentiary, old man Bai? This is Giant Ghost City, not your Bai clan. Brothers from the city guard, I'm Bai Hao from Devil Penitentiary. These people are violating local law. Not only are they ganging up on me, they're intentionally disrespecting Giant Ghost City." With that, he grabbed Zhou Yixing and prepared to leave. Seeing that Bai Xiaochun was getting away, Madame Kai completely ignored the city guards and shrieked, Bai clan cultivators, kill him immediately. The venom in Madame Kai's eyes couldn't have been more evident. Her hatred for Bai Xiaochun had reached unimaginable heights. However, the other members of the Bai clan hesitated, fully conscious of the razor-sharp gazes of the city guards. Seeing that the Bai clan cultivators weren't giving chase, Madame Kai screamed, "Get moving, all of you. Kill him." Then she turned to the nearby Kai clan cultivator and was about to say something when the Bai clan chief growled, "Shut up." It was a mere growl, but it echoed like thunder, causing Madame Kai to shake visibly as she turned to stare at her husband. Expression very grim, he said, "Giant Ghost King bequeathed that scum with a title. If the Diva Patriarch had to give him up, then what do you think we can do? Besides, killing is prohibited within the city limits." Madame Kai didn't seem inclined to agree, but had no choice. However, the rage in her heart was so intense that she was shaking violently. As for the city guards, when they saw that the Bai clan was standing down, and that Bai Xiaochun was already leaving, they looked around vigilantly for a bit, then left. Before long, the street had calmed down. The Bai clan cultivators exchanged awkward glances, and Madame Kai was gnashing her teeth. Glancing grimly at the fleeing Bai Xiaochun, the clan chief turned to Madame Kai and quietly said, "Just wait a bit longer. Once the heavens change, we'll have our chance." Madame Kai was taken aback, but quickly realized what the clan chief was talking about. Bai Xiaochun took Zhou Yixing with him as he left the area of the teleportation portal. After checking to make sure they weren't being followed, they stopped in a random alley to catch their breath. Then Bai Xiaochun finally took a moment to think about how the three great clans had been buying so many souls that he was left with almost nothing to buy. In fact, they had even gone so far as to offer 10 times the normal price for some souls just now. Complete bullies. Well, Bai Xiaochun is the type of person who knows how to be flexible. I'll just have to sit back and hold tight. Considering how terrifying the Bai clan patriarch was, and the fact that he was temporarily stuck in the wildlands, he realized that he had no other choice. It was at this point that Zhou Yixing, aware he had just escaped a disaster, clasped hands and said, "Many thanks, my lord. If you had come even a moment later, I probably would never have been able to see you again." "Sorry to have dragged you into it," Bai Xiaochun said. "Oh, right. Did you get your hands on all the loot I messaged you about?" "All of it," Zhou Yixing replied. But then he grimaced. "Unfortunately, those people from the three great clans, they robbed me clean." "What?" Bai Xiaochun said, eyes widening. Bai Xiaochun was so angry he felt like exploding. Complete and utter bullies, he thought. Bai Xiaochun is the type of person who knows how to be flexible, but this time, I can't just sit around and do nothing. This is ridiculous. You big bullies. You're obviously just trying to take advantage of how honest I am. The Bai clan, Kai clan, and Shen clan are all full of scoundrels." The more he thought about it, the more angry and humiliated he got. After all, he hadn't robbed anything from the three great clans, and yet they had gone and robbed him. Well, he had robbed the Bai clan to some extent, but that didn't give the Kai clan and the Chen clan the right to do the same. Zhou Yixing was a bit taken aback at how angry Bai Xiaochun was getting. In recent days, he had often had certain suspicions about what exactly was going on. However, he had never been willing to put too much thought into the matter. It doesn't really matter who this Bai Hao really is, he told himself, ducking his head. Anger burning, Bai Xiaochun muttered, "I'm not going to sit around and do nothing." Then he gritted his teeth and paced back and forth in thought for a moment. Finally, his eyes began to shine as he thought back to the soul grounds in the Bai clan. The so-called soul grounds were specially constructed areas filled with auras of death. Such locations were even more well-suited to keeping souls fresh than soul-hoarding pagodas. In fact, not only did they keep souls fresh, but they could slowly improve their quality. All in all, with the exception of a few special types of soul-hoarding pagodas, there was nothing that could compare to a soul ground. Furthermore, soul grounds could hold more souls overall. Obviously, it was natural for great clans to have more soul grounds than average, and from what Bai Xiaochun could remember, the Bai clan had possessed something like 7 or 8. They were all protected by spell formations and guarded by soul cultivators. In fact, they usually contained something called soul sentries, which were special souls that had been transformed into guards. Because of all that, soul grounds were very difficult places to get into. Furthermore, even if someone got inside, the vast numbers of souls would usually consume anyone unfamiliar. Besides, stealing souls from soul grounds would be provoking the three great clans, and no one would ever dare to do something like that. They stole my souls, so therefore, I'm going to steal theirs. Having reached this point in his train of thought, Bai Xiaochun gritted his teeth and sent Zhou Yixing away with orders to find a place to hole up and keep his head down. Then he headed out of the city. Because he was a guard at Devil Penitentiary, he was allowed to temporarily leave the city if he wished. If he tried to flee completely, he would be brought back, but as long as he didn't do that, he had a relative measure of freedom. It was evening by the time he was outside the city, whereupon he carefully headed toward the Chen clan. Upon arrival, he was able to spot their soul grounds near the clan itself. However, the area was so rife with souls that he realized that the risk of being spotted was too high. After some thought, he decided it was too dangerous. I'll go check out the other two clans. Taking advantage of the darkness of night, he headed to the Bai clan. However, an inspection of their soul grounds revealed the sad truth that the Bai clan actually didn't have many souls stored up. If I robbed them, they would realize it almost instantly. Besides, I want a lot of souls. With that, he headed toward the Kai clan. It was deep into the night by the time he arrived near the Kai clan's soul grounds. There, his eyes began to shine brightly. The Kai clan's soul grounds were different than the Chen clan's. Instead of being set up near the ancestral mansions, they were scattered around rather haphazardly. Some of them were very close to the residences, but others were many kilometers away. Bai Xiaochun even found two that were fully 20 kilometers away from any of the other buildings. The two soul grounds were both under the protection of a single spell formation, which glowed with bright light despite the darkness of the night. Based on the fluctuations of the spell formation, even a nascent soul cultivator would have a hard time breaking through it. Furthermore, disturbing the spell formation in any way would alert the Kai clan. Inside the spell formation was a building that looked like a huge beehive, covered with countless holes that the souls could fly into and out of. The mere sight of how many souls were present caused Bai Xiaochun to gasp. Furthermore, some of the souls were at the nascent soul level, and there were also some unique and special souls mixed in. In addition, there were over 10,000 black-armored soul sentries, whose eyes glowed with bright light. The soul sentries were clearly waiting for any unrecognized person to enter the spell formation, whereupon they would attack with deadly force. Also located within each of the soul grounds were buildings occupied by Kai clan soul cultivators. There were only a dozen or so, and they didn't have very high cultivation bases, but considering that they had the power of the spell formation at their disposal, if anything happened, all they would have to do would be to hold out for a short time before reinforcements from the clan arrived. Because these two soul grounds were so close to each other, all of the clan guards had gathered in one of them. Because of how everything was set up, the soul grounds of the three great clans were the type of things that outsiders might be able to look at, but would never dare to mess with. However, Bai Xiaochun was different. As soon as he was able to study the situation, his eyes began to shine. You rob me, I rob you right back. Measly soul grounds. Other people might think it impossible to do anything to them, but for me, it's going to be simple. With the snap of a finger, I, Bai Xiaochun, will reduce them to ashes. After making some calculations, he took a step forward and instantly pierced through the air. Completely ignoring the defensive spell formation, and not even attracting its attention, he appeared in the middle of the soul ground. It happened so quickly that the Kai clan guards didn't have time to react, and as for the patrolling soul sentries, they simply gaped in shock. The clan guards' eyes went wide, and they stared at Bai Xiaochun for a moment before one of them said, "You." However, before anything else could happen, Bai Xiaochun unleashed a fist strike. A huge boom rang out as an attack blasted into the Kai clan cultivators, sending them tumbling backward, blood spraying out of their mouths before they simply lapsed into unconsciousness. By this point, the soul sentries began to react, letting out piercing screams as they shot toward Bai Xiaochun. However, that was when he stamped his foot down onto the ground, causing ripples to spread out like they would on the surface of a pond when a rock hit it. In reaction, the floating, beehive-like building erupted with screaming sounds as a tide of souls surged out. Bai Xiaochun's heart was already pounding at the sight of so many souls. Excited, he didn't hesitate for a moment to toss out a soul convergence pill. I need speed. A blitzkrieg strategy. Rumbling sounds could be heard as he tossed out more soul convergence pills, creating black holes which instantly sucked in the countless screaming souls, then transformed them into soul spheres. This is awesome. What a goldmine. In his excitement, he looked over at the second soul ground, and decided that he might as well kill two birds with one stone. After collecting all of his soul spheres, he flashed into motion, appearing in the second soul ground, where a similar scene to what had just occurred played out. Not even the soul sentries could escape. In less time than it takes half an incense stick to burn, two soul grounds were wiped completely clean of all souls. Bai Xiaochun was extremely pleased with the number of soul spheres he had ended up with, which was enough to keep him going, at least temporarily. However, in the moment in which he sucked up the last of the souls, he apparently triggered something in the spell formation, which sent a shining pillar of light up into the sky. Obviously, it was something that the Kai clan would quickly notice. Damn it, does emptying the soul grounds set off the spell formation? Bai Xiaochun thought, his face falling. The bright light of the spell formation was instantly noticed by people in the Kai clan, who began to utter exclamations of shock as they flew up into the air. What's going on? Is that coming from the soul grounds? What's happened? It looks like a soul ground spell formation is flaring up. No wait, 2 soul grounds. Even the Kai clan patriarch flew out and hurried in the direction of the soul grounds. Jittery with fear, Bai Xiaochun prepared to leave, but then stopped in place. Soul convergence pills leave evidence behind. If people look into it too closely, they might guess who I really am. I need to get rid of the evidence. Even if they see me, it won't matter as long as my true identity isn't revealed. He quickly pulled out a 12-colored flame that he had conjured earlier in preparation for another attempt at 13-colored flame. Instantly, one of his clones stepped out, and furthered the conjuring process. Considering how well practiced he was, and that his clone was helping, everything went very quickly. However, conjuring flame wasn't his true goal. Just when the 13th color was about to appear, the flame destabilized, thanks to his clone. Then, the fire exploded. Rumbling sounds filled heaven and earth as bright red clouds appeared overhead. Then, numerous bolts of 13-colored flame appeared and began to fall from the sky. Incomparably intense heat filled heaven and earth, and the 2 soul grounds were instantly incinerated. In fact, not only was the evidence of the soul convergence pills removed, but the spell formations were also destabilized and began to collapse. Of course, Bai Xiaochun wasn't the type to kill indiscriminately, so he made sure to throw the unconscious Kai clan cultivators off to a safe location. Even as the flames spread, Bai Xiaochun transformed into a beam of light that shot away at high speed, filled with the thrill of having robbed the souls he needed and then destroyed the evidence. Who told you to go rob my souls? HMMMPHH. His heart was pounding with the realization that he had just done something big. However, now was not the time to ponder the situation. Even as he began to speed away, an enraged roar erupted out. How dare you meddle with our Kai clan soul grounds? Do you have a death wish? 8 figures appeared out in the open, and began to move with lightning-like speed. One of them was a young man who appeared to be less than 30 years of age, but who had a full head of silver hair, and radiated the aura of the great circle of core formation. There was even a bit of a nascent soul feel to him, as though he were so close to the nascent soul stage that all he had to do was go into secluded meditation and spend a bit of time, and he would succeed. In terms of speed, he was already similar to a nascent soul cultivator, and as he bore down on Bai Xiaochun, a look of fury could be seen in his eyes. As for the 7 cultivators behind him, they were all core formation experts, and their faces all shone with rage when they saw the burnt, scorched soul grounds. Are you looking to die? When they saw Bai Xiaochun fleeing off into the distance, their killing intent erupted with full power. They were just the first wave to appear. Next were the nascent Soul Clan elders. Bai Xiaochun was startled at how quickly the Kai clan reacted, and knew that if he got involved in a protracted fight, he would likely end up with serious injuries. Therefore, he fled at top speed. Considering the speed he was capable of, he was instantly able to put a huge distance between himself and his pursuers. Then, he simply vanished. When the silver-haired chosen saw that Bai Xiaochun was about to make his escape, his killing intent grew even stronger. Without the slightest hesitation, he slapped his bag of holding to produce a beast hide, which he threw out in front of him. The beast hide instantly ignited, and as it burned up, the air behind the young man rippled as a shadowy beast appeared. It was an enormous, 2-headed vulture, with a wingspan of several hundred meters. As soon as it appeared, it threw its head back and let loose a piercing cry before flapping its wings and taking to flight. At the same time, the Kai clan chosen leapt onto its back. Shockingly, the young man was using some unknown technique to follow the evidence of Bai Xiaochun's passage and track him down. Bai Xiaochun staggered out into the open roughly 5 kilometers away. Not pausing for even a moment, he headed at top speed toward Giant Ghost City. Gotta speed up. If anyone from the Kai clan catches me, I'll be in great danger. By now, the high he had felt from snatching all the souls was gone, and he was now starting to feel anxiety and fear. They forced me to do it, he thought, wiping the sweat from his brow. As he rocketed through the air in a beam of light, Giant Ghost City got closer and closer. Within a few breaths of time, he would be there. However, that was when an intense whistling sound filled the air, and a blast of wild wind rose up. It was the type of wind that was capable of exterminating the life of anything it touched, and it instantly pierced Bai Xiaochun to the core. Shivering, he looked over his shoulder, whereupon his eyes went wide at the sight of the enormous two-headed vulture shooting toward him. On the vulture's back was the young man, his face a mask of fury, and a long, black spear held in his right hand. Impertinent thief! How dare you meddle with our Kai clan soul grounds? I'm going to kill you in body and soul. Then the vulture accelerated as the young man drew on the full power of his cultivation base to shoot toward Bai Xiaochun, spear outstretched. Bai Xiaochun simply couldn't react to the incredible speed of the vulture. In the blink of an eye, it was right on top of him, and the black spear in the hand of the Kai clan chosen was stabbing toward him. Bai Xiaochun's face fell as he let out a shout and threw his hands out to defend himself. Bong! Bai Xiaochun flew backward by several hundred meters. When he came to a stop, he examined himself, and then murmured, "I'm not hurt." The young man's attack moments ago had seemed incredible, and Bai Xiaochun had assumed that he would be badly hurt. However, to his surprise, he was completely unscathed. "Fudge!" he exclaimed in delight. "That vulture is super powerful, but compared to me, it's totally weak. I guess it was just its speed that caught me unprepared." The young man on the vulture gasped in shock as he looked at Bai Xiaochun. His vulture was capable of speed rivaling the great circle of the nascent soul stage. Plus, he had been powering his spear with his cultivation base, which meant that he should have been able to seriously injure even someone in the nascent soul stage. But this thief ended up unharmed. Completely shaken, the young man looked more closely at Bai Xiaochun's face, which caused his eyes to widen. You're Bai Hao." Because of how he had rebelled against the Bai clan, Bai Hao's face was very well known in the area. Although not everyone would recognize him, not even many of the silk pants cultivators of the three great clans, the elite chosen had all seen his picture. Because of the urgency of the situation earlier, this young man hadn't paid any attention to the person he was dealing with, but now that he took a closer look, he recognized him easily. Instantly, nervousness gripped his heart. He knew that Bai Hao was a vicious fiend who had captured the chief of the Bai clan, who was a mid-nascent soul stage expert. He had even provoked the Bai clan's diva patriarch into action. Obviously, he was not the type of person to go around offending. "Recognize me?" Bai Xiaochun shouted. "Well, recognizing me won't do you any good." Shoving his hand out, he sent a blast of wind toward the Kai clan chosen. Bai Xiaochun's true self and his four clones unleashed a storm of magical techniques that covered everything in the area. A tempest of 5 parts raged around the Kai clan chosen, converging upon him with deadly power. The young chosen's scalp was tingling so hard it felt like it might explode. His aura teetered unstably, and he already regretted how impulsive he had been in giving chase. However, there was no time for thought or planning at the moment. All he could do was turn his vulture around and try to get away as quickly as possible. Thankfully for him, the vulture was incredibly quick. By the time the storm of magical techniques reached the spot that he had just occupied, he was several hundred meters away. Despite having made it to safety, his heart was still pounding with shock. Trying to buy time for others from his clan to arrive, he shouted, "The Kai clan didn't do anything to provoke you, Bai Hao. Why did you have to go and destroy our soul grounds?" Bai Xiaochun frowned. He could tell that this vulture had been conjured by some magical technique, and that it would soon vanish. However, time was something he was very short on right now. "You Kai clan people intimidated me and stole my souls," he shouted. "HMPH. It's only natural that I would rob you right back." Aware that now wasn't the time to worry about one insignificant opponent, Bai Xiaochun turned and shot away at top speed. The chosen gritted his teeth, then sent his vulture in pursuit. At the moment, he was operating under the assumption that as long as he didn't get too close, he should be safe. Plus, he would be able to keep eyes on the target and make it easier for the Kai clan patriarch to track him down. They both sped along as fast as lightning. Bai Xiaochun felt a bit nervous at being followed, but he knew that the vulture was simply too fast. If he turned and tried to fight, his opponent could simply flee, and then he would end up getting involved in a pointless, time-wasting chase. "I hate bastards like this who rely on speed to get the upper hand. HMMPHH. Does he really think he can use that bird to keep up with me?" His eyes flashed with cold light, but his face remained expressionless. Continuing to head straight toward Giant Ghost City, he sent out the aura of a frigid paragon, although he did it very carefully, so that it wasn't obvious. When the intense cold reached the vulture, the Kai clan chosen shivered. A moment later, his face fell as he realized he should fall back. However, by that point there wasn't enough time. Bai Xiaochun spun around and said, "Too late." With his frigid paragon aura spread out in a frigid domain, Bai Xiaochun could teleport as easily as a nascent soul cultivator. Even as his voice echoed out, he vanished, reappearing right on top of the vulture, in front of the Kai clan chosen. There, he unleashed the mountain-shaking bash, launching himself toward the young chosen with terrifying power. Having no time to evade, the young man braced himself for impact. His cultivation base was on the very cusp of reaching the nascent soul stage, and yet, compared to Bai Xiaochun, he was weak. A boom rang out as Bai Xiaochun slammed into the young man's chest, causing blood to erupt out of his mouth. His bones shattered, and he began to slip into death, but it was at that point that a dark yellow light sprang up from a pendant that hung at his neck. Within that light was the power of a diva, which fought back against the attack. The young chosen coughed up a mouthful of blood as he tumbled backward through the air like a kite with its string cut. The yellow light around him was more than half gone, and his pendant was now covered with cracks. Clearly, the diva pendant had saved his life. However, if he sustained another such attack, he would not be so lucky. Face ashen and filled with terror, he thought, without that life-saving magic the patriarch gave me, I would have been killed just now. This Bai Hao, he almost killed me. The young man was shaking physically, and his courage was gone. Without the slightest hesitation, he fled, completely bereft of any desire to give chase. He now realized that chasing this target was no simple matter, it was risking his life. The people from these great clans really have a lot of ways to save their own skins, Bai Xiaochun thought with a frown. Seeing the young chosen fleeing, he snorted and considered chasing after him. But then, his expression flickered, and he spun and took a step, piercing into the air and vanishing. Only a few breaths of time later, 3 beams of light could be seen approaching from behind the terrified Kai clan chosen. Rumbling sounds could be heard as 3 old men appeared in the area where Bai Xiaochun had just disappeared. As soon as the young chosen saw the old men, his face lit up with excitement, and he shouted, "Elders, the thief is Bai Hao, the traitor of the Bai clan." These 3 old men were clan elders, with one of them being a grand elder in the great circle of the nascent soul stage. All of them had very grim expressions as they heard the news from the chosen. Afterward, they nodded and continued to give chase. Meanwhile, a rift appeared at a location near Giant Ghost City, and Bai Xiaochun stepped out into the open. His aura was in chaos because of the anxiety he was feeling, but it was without hesitation that he shot toward Giant Ghost City. Damn it, those Kai clan people are fast. I just finished beating the kid, and the grown-ups showed up almost in the same instant. If they were really good though, they'd fight me one-on-one. Just as he was about to enter the city, the 3 elders from the Kai clan appeared behind him, moving so quickly that the clouds swirled up above in the sky, and thunderous rumblings filled the air. When they realized that Bai Xiaochun was about to enter the city, they pushed forward with greater speed, the killing intent in their eyes shining brightly. "Bai Hao," one of them shouted. "I don't care that you have an official position in Giant Ghost City. For robbing our Kai clan soul grounds, I'm going to put you to death." His cultivation base was in the great circle of the nascent soul stage, causing his words to roll out like a shockwave, a powerful attack that instantly pierced into Bai Xiaochun's ears. Too frightened to even look over his shoulder, Bai Xiaochun raced toward the city. The stunned city guards were about to step forward to block his path when he pulled out his Devil Penitentiary command medallion and then roared, "I'm a guard at Devil Penitentiary. The Kai clan is planning a rebellion. Stop them." As his words echoed out into Giant Ghost City, the expressions on the faces of the city guards flickered dramatically. Furthermore, as soon as they saw Bai Xiaochun's command medallion, and the fact that he was being chased by people from the Kai clan, they were even more stirred into action. As for the 3 elders, their expressions also flickered. That's complete bullcrap. The Kai clan has always served the Giant Ghost King with complete loyalty. Don't even think of trying to slander us. Bai Xiaochun was elated to see that his tactic was working. Roaring, he pushed forward into the city. The 3 clan elders tried to chase after him, but the city guards interfered, and soon, more patrolling guards showed up. Were it not for Bai Xiaochun's slanderous comments earlier, the elders might have tried to kill him anyway. But if they did that now, it could lead to further complications, the mere thought of which left them terrified. The 3 elders were forced to swallow their frustration and anger and try to explain things to the city guards. Because of that delay, Bai Xiaochun managed to reach the moat, then used his command medallion to dive down into the waters. I betrayed the entire Bai clan, and yet, they didn't dare to try to make a move on me once I was in Devil Penitentiary. As for this Kai clan, all I did was loot 2 of their soul grounds. There's no way they'll dare to come after me. Feeling very pleased with himself, he headed toward the stone turtle at the bottom of the moat and beyond it, Devil Penitentiary. The truth was that his supposition was absolutely correct. After clearing matters up with the city guards, the three elders from the Kai clan had no choice but to stand at the edge of the moat and look furiously into the waters. Devil Penitentiary was a place none of them dared to try to enter uninvited. After a long moment passed, all they could do was stalk away with grim expressions on their faces. Although matters seemed to have come to an end, the events which had just played out ended up being just as shocking news in the city as Bai Xiaochun's betrayal of the Bai clan. Soon, all of the soul cultivators had heard about what happened, and were talking about Bai Hao and the Kai clan. Did you hear? That Bai Hao caused a big scene. He robbed some of the Kai clan's soul grounds, and even burned 2 of them to the ground. He really knows how to cause trouble. Not only did he turn traitor against the Bai clan, he also went and provoked the Kai clan. I heard that some silk pants from the Kai clan got into an argument with him over some souls, and ended up outbidding him. He got pissed off, and that's what led to the situation. I can't believe he went to such lengths over such a small matter. Not only is Bai Hao completely vicious and cruel, but he seeks revenge over the smallest grievance. I heard he has some amazing divine ability that calls down fire from the heavens. Because of all the talk that was spreading, Bai Hao's reputation grew, and everyone came to learn about his heavenly fire, and his vicious methods. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.